The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
I heard this from a son-in-law of the Sered Vizhnitzer Rebbe Shlita in Haifa. Naftali Karenreich Shlita, we were at Bar Mitzvah together. He shared with me the story. He heard it from the original source. The rabbi was a rabbi in Haifa. He had a shul. Near the shul, there was a store, a clothing store, that was owned by an Israeli citizen living in Haifa, a secular Jew, who kept his store open on Shabbos. The rabbi of the shul asked him if he can close the store just for the morning hours of Shabbos. People come to shul out of respect for your neighbor. It's synagogue, it's a bet knesset, it's Shabbat. He said, no, I'm a secular Jew. I keep my store open on Shabbos. You have a shul, do your shul. The store was successful. It would attract people Shabbos morning. And it really bothered the rabbi. They would come out of shul and people were hanging out. The store really didn't create a positive environment. And he went to the Sered Vizhnitzer Rebbe at the time. His name was Rabbi Hager of blessed memory. He passed away in the 1960s. And he asked him what to do about this person who's desecrating Shabbos publicly, b'fahasi. And the Sered Vizhnitzer Rebbe looked at him and said, I want to ask you a question. Do you love this Jew? He said, absolutely not. I actually loathe him. In fact, how could I love him? He's desecrating Shabbos publicly. Despite my requests, he violates the Shabbos. He desecrates God and Judaism and Yiddishkeit and Shabbos, and he does it in public. I'm not even allowed to love him if I would want to. I have to loathe such a person. So the Sered Vizhnitzer Rebbe looked at him and said, I want to ask you a question. You say that the reason you hate him is because he desecrates Shabbos. Maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he desecrates Shabbos because you hate him. How do you know that you hate him because he violates Shabbos? Maybe he violates Shabbos because you hate him, which means you're the one who's responsible. He's like, what do you want me to do? He says, maybe if you would love him, he would stop violating Shabbos. He says, how do I love him? Figure it out. You're saying maybe it's about you, not about him. He says, what should I do? He said, next Shabbos morning, go into him on the way to shul and tell him that you love him. He said, but I don't. He says, well, you have till Shabbos to work on it. Figure it out. He says, why should I love him? Because he's your brother. Because his soul is a piece of God just like your soul. If you're genuine, do it for 6 months, every Shabbos morning. To his credit, this rabbi went in Shabbos morning. The owner of the store saw him and said, lech mipo. You know, Israelis can speak Dugri, right? Undiplomatically. He walks in. The man tells him what he wants to tell him. And he says, no, I didn't come here to ask you of anything. He says, so why are you here? Ratziti lagid lecha Shabbat shalom, ani ohev otcha. Good Shabbos, I love you. He says, ma, ta meshuga? You lost your mind, you went in to say it. He says, I'm not meshuga. Why do you love me? He says, you're my brother. You're a Jew, I love you. I want to hug you. He gives him a big hug. He came back the next Shabbos morning and he did the same thing. Next Shabbos, the same thing. 6 months later, the store was closed. Had the Sered Vizhnitzer Rebbe not told him those words, for the rest of his life he would have looked at himself and say, I am holier than thou. I am a righteous Jew, he is a wicked Jew. And he would have really felt comfortable about his holiness and religiosity. It would have never dawned on him once that it's not the person's Chilul Shabbos that created his hatred, it's his hatred that contributed to the Chilul Shabbos. He had to be taken out of his comfort zone. This is one of the hardest things in education. One of the hardest things in education is we think education is about educating our children. It's true, but there's something much more true about education. Real education is about self-awareness. It's about educating myself. It's about growing up myself. It's about real awareness of who I am.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org